All right, let me, says you're here. Why is this? Let me move this. Let's try this. I'm trying to guest you in. I'm not sure if you can hear me or not. But let's see. It's not giving me the option to guest you in. But this is what it did last night too. Why is this being so finicky? Oh, maybe. Oh, snap. There it goes. Guessed it in. Is it going to work? It's connecting. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, yes.
Success. Look at that. It worked.
Great.
This is amazing.
That is.
Second time's a charm. Now no one's on here to watch us. Maybe they'll find us at some point. That's my hope. So
yes.
Let's see. So I'm going to do a quick introduction for the rebroadcast. So people that are watching this and you are not watching it live, thank you and welcome to Teacher Talk. And so this is a new experiment that I'm trying this summer where I'm going to try and have like guest YouTube teachers that are doing amazing things on the internet, and then just have them on and we answer your questions and talk about stuff that is important to you. And the whole idea here is to bring value to you immediately, like in real time. So tonight we have Mr. Thain from Mr. Thain, and man, I'm so pumped to be doing this. It's so exciting. Thanks for coming on, man. Can you take a second? Even though more people know who you are than they know who I am, could you introduce yourself a little bit and tell us like who you are and what you're doing?
Yeah, okay. First of all, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you good.
Perfect. Okay, so hi, I'm Mr. Thain, also known as Kyle Thain. I teach kindergarten. I got my start teaching 5 years ago, so this is my 5th year on kindergarten. I actually started out teaching on the south side of Chicago, so it was incredible. I absolutely loved it. But I recently just moved back to Ohio, where I'm from. My wife and I moved back to Ohio to be closer to family. And just living back here, it's a slower paced life, and I had more free time. So I thought I had something missing, and I wanted to share some of the knowledge that I've learned over the years teaching with other teachers. And I thought, what better way than to start a YouTube channel? So it started out as just a couple teaching tips here and there. It turned into a weekly vlog where someone's trying to call me. A weekly vlog where I just kind of like shared a little bit about each day, about school and about at home. And at one day I was just like, hey, I'm filming every single day anyways. So why not try daily vlogging? And 6 months later, daily vlogging, teaching tip videos, that kind of thing. It's been a wild ride, but that's kind of me. My daily vlog is mostly about just my life. As a teacher, as a husband, and my message, my common message is just about how to live life every day to the fullest, no matter what life throws at you, and how to have a work-life balance. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Nice. Kate is asking, what part of Ohio are you from?
All right, I'm from Northwest Ohio. Usually I start at Toledo, Ohio, and move down. So I'm about an hour south of Toledo, Ohio, 2 hours north of Columbus. I live in the quaint village of Gilboa, Ohio, population 200.
Wow.
Yeah, so one day my goal is I got my hat on, old blue right here, Gilboa, this one of a kind. I will be the mayor of this town one day. That's one of my life goals, so it's fun.
That is awesome. That is awesome. So for people that don't know who I am, to give you just a little bit of context, my name's CJ Reynolds. I teach in West Philadelphia. I teach 9th grade literature, and I've been teaching, I'm just about to finish my 11th year of teaching, and I started YouTube because my son wanted to have a YouTube channel, and then when he lost interest, I thought I really liked it, and I learned like all these skills on how to like edit and shoot video, and that were good enough. And I always wished stuff was on YouTube, and I tried to find things on the internet when I started teaching, and it just didn't exist. And so I thought I would try and make videos about things that I wish existed when I started teaching. And so that's kind of where I got my start. So just invited people. So Kate invited 621 people to watch this. So thanks, Kate, the sleepy teacher. She is the queen of you now. Yeah. And so I love when she's on here because she's helpful with everything. So let me get us started with this, Kyle. Should we? Is it Kyle or Mr. Thain? Do you prefer, or do you just hear Mr. Thain all day?
You know what? Either way is fine. I'm good with either way.
Okay. So I'm thinking of a lot of new teachers, and people are finishing up college right now and starting to get started in the teaching career. And I know that like in the beginning, it is completely overwhelming, and there's a real sense of like working yourself almost to death.
Yeah.
What's your experience with that? Like when you started out, and like how do you, and if you did struggle with that, like how do you deal with it now to like have a better, I guess, work-life balance?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I read the stat sometime that somewhere around year 5 is when a lot of teachers kind of leave. Very few teachers, a lot of teachers don't last very long, and one of the reasons is that burnout and just not being able to do it anymore. This is a job, a career that it takes a lot of us. It's a selfless career, and it's a job where you truly are putting others first all the time, and you've got to be on your A game a lot. So my first year of teaching, with my experience with that, it was nonstop. Like I would get there at like, my first year I would start at 8:45 and I would get there at like 6:30 in the morning and wouldn't leave until about 5 every day, then come home and do work. And that was like that the whole first year. And after that I said, something's got to give. Something has to change. And although if you're going to be a first year teacher, there really is no getting around the fact of your first year is going to be a lot of time, simply because everything is brand new. You don't have the stuff to go back to. So my suggestion is, if you're going into your first year, get in your mind and have the mindset, you know what, this year that's what I'm doing. I'm going to be a teacher, and everything else is going to have to go to the side on the back burner. But as you progress on to year 2, for the work-life balance, I find it really helpful to plan my stuff out in a way that low prep, high engagement lessons. So for example, I don't do, this might come from me in my specific background, but I don't do a lot of lessons where I have to do a ton of prep to get a good result. I try to find ways to engage my students, but deliver the content swiftly and effectively. And I would rather spend my time teaching than prepping. So that's one quick tip that I use to kind of balance that work time. And then for the my life balance, my wife and I, Kristen, on our daily vlog, we talk a lot about every single day of the week having something to look forward to, whether it's Movie Monday or eating with friends on Tuesday or getting a pizza on Wednesday, whatever the case may be. On the weeknights, have something to look forward to after you get all your work done, after everything's settled in. So even if you have a rough day at school, you're like, oh yeah, but it's Movie Monday, so having something to always, a little bright spot every single day. And then, plan ahead, plan for your weekends. Don't sit at home all weekend planning. Like, get some time to get out and be social. So that's sort of that's the conclusions that I've came to over the past 4 years on that.
Yeah, which is really hard too, I think, in the beginning, because you're so nervous that everything's going to go wrong, and you don't have that skill set that you get after a few years of like, everything could pretty much go to crap in class and I could still like figure something out. I have enough tricks in my pocket to like make it work. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think another part of that too, which you've started talking about on your channel recently, is this idea of taking care of yourself better and kind of like treating your body almost like a car. So like I try and make sure that I'm exercising every day, and I'm like I do a lot of like envisioning like what I want my day to look like, and So I get up at every morning at 5 a.m. and I go to the gym and I run and then I go to school. And what that shift in my head is like, I'm ready for the day instead of like getting up and like lumbering to the shower. That gives me energy. And I know people at work have like, everyone's gonna have a different version of this, because I have friends that like work out after school, or they get up and pray in the morning, or, but I think getting up that little bit earlier and like setting yourself up and like, just like you would for a game, because you're on. I mean, I'm sure you have the same thing, but like when you walk in the building, little kids especially aren't waiting for you to wake up. It's like 8 o'clock in the morning and they're on 10 already. And you're like, all right, let's do it. So I love it. It's such an important part to like keep yourself going. So I'm looking at questions on YouTube, and someone said, what attributes make a good teacher? What would you say to that? Like, what would you need to have in you to be a good teacher?
Well, I mean, I would say you really do have to like kids. You have to love kids, like whatever age. You really do have to enjoy working with children. And I would consider, even to 18, high school, they're children. Like, you have to want to be a part of their lives, and you have to have a certain level of patience with them, which isn't always easy. I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. By the end of the week, your patience wears a little thin. But I would say patience, a love for kids, and you have to have a certain work ethic, and realize that you are, like you said, you are on right away. So it's almost like being an athlete, like you were saying. You've got to be willing to put in the work, and it's not just about showing up to the game or to class teaching. It's about doing everything else: lesson planning, eating right, sleeping right. You've got to be committed to the craft and the art of teaching, which I kind of liken it to an art, or like a conductor orchestrating a symphony, right? Like, you got to make all these moving parts. You've got so much to juggle and balance. I would say you've got to be a good multitasker, and you would have to be passionate about what you do. Yeah,
I agree. I am awful at multitasking, by the way. I tell my students, I'm like, I'm good at like one thing at a time. And so, but I definitely see where that would totally come in handy. I think also, along with patience, like having patience for yourself also. Everyone jumps into teaching, and I just feel like a lot of young teachers expect to be good immediately, and they don't realize that it's a craft. Like, no one sits behind the drum set or the piano or a car and just is amazing right away. Like, you might have more natural talent than someone else, but it does take a long time, I think, or longer than people would like, to get good at what you're doing. And really having patience with yourself is a huge part of it, and remembering that teaching is an actual craft. It's not something you just like can do right away. And I think a level of humbleness. I'm not even sure if humbleness is a word, but now it is. I've introduced it. So being humble and learning how to like, eat it sometimes, and learning how to apologize to kids. Like, when you're wrong, just saying, you know what? I know I'm the adult. I know I'm infinitely older than you are, but I really apologize. That was a wrong move, and that was a wrong thing for me to do. And and I think that goes a long way with even like building relationships with kids. I don't know what that name is, but there's a question mark. It looks like a Super Mario Brother block. And the question is college question. How long is too long to decide your major? A year, 2 years? I'm set, but my friend is still undecided after a year. Is that a question where you're really the friend?
Asking for a friend.
Yeah. So how long is too long to decide your major? I'll let you take this one.
Okay.
I don't know what your trajectory was or how quick you got through college or whatever, but sure. I was on the Van Wilder set.
Okay, so actually, I started out my college career as a marketing major. I wanted to make the money. I wanted to be a big shot in New York City. I wanted to do that, and so I actually started my first whole year as a business major, and I didn't change until my sophomore year. And so I mean, I would say like honestly, I have a friend who like went a couple extra years because he switched majors like halfway through, but you got to do what you got to do, right? So like, if this is you saying that you're not sure what you want to do yet, like my answer to that question is find like what do you like doing and do that, right? Like, we're living in a day and age now where that can be anything, right? Like there's tons of people that are like becoming big and making lots of money, like playing video games, like whatever you like to do that and use college as a tool to help you search for yourself, find things that you like to do, and really sort of maybe try out new things. And for example, I was talking to somebody the other day who really likes video games, and he's like, I don't know how to make that into a career. And I said, well, look, if you want to be a professional video gamer, take communications courses, take business courses, because you're going to have to be your own business. You're going to have to market yourself. Like, use college as a resource. Sometimes that means majoring in education because you kind of have to be a teacher, or that means majoring, getting pre-med if you want to be a doctor. But sometimes it's not always that cut and dry, and you can get away with a more general degree like business or communications. But I mean, I would say like it doesn't have to be your one for sure. You don't have to know right away.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the things I think that you said that was really important is like sometimes, and like going to college is a non-negotiable. Like, you know, the school I work at is a college, we prep guys for college. But I don't think that college is for everyone either. And I know that wasn't the question that was asked, but I just think that that's really important. But I know for myself, like to be a teacher, there's no other option. You have to go to college to be a teacher. So I had a sort of crazy trajectory. I wanted to be a carpenter. Then I wanted to be a drummer, which I did for a very long time and played in like studios and with bands. And then I went from that to I wanted to be a clown. And then I wanted to be a priest. And then my wife trashed that dream because I couldn't be married and be a priest. So, you know, for me, it was after standing back and looking at that and being in my mid-20s, I realized that all that stuff together would make a really great teacher, and it had a lot of different aspects from each one that I thought would make a good teacher. So I went back to school, and I'd been in college before, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. But then after that sort of self-assessment, I knew exactly what I wanted to do, and that just made college a lot easier. But I didn't start teaching until I was 27 years old, and I'm 40 now. So that's how I handled it. So I don't think I think, you know, your 20s are a lot about figuring out who you are and what you're about and what excites you. And I think take your time. Like you always think everyone else is moving so fast and so far ahead, but they're really not. Like, you know, you could still be 40 and trying to figure out what you want to do. And if that's when you figure out what you want to do, then that's when you go and crush it. Someone said, Nate G asked on YouTube, I began student teaching on January 18th. What should I be doing over the summer to prepare, and what should I read besides textbooks? That's a really great question. What do you think?
Okay, so plug-in time here. YouTube. Seriously, there's a lot of us YouTubers on teachers on YouTube. Kate the Sleepy Teacher, Mr. Thain, Real Rap with the Reynolds, Classroom Diva, Genuine Teaching. I mean, it goes on and on. Watch our videos because we're sharing, like, a lot of us started it to help people like you who are getting ready to join the coalition of teachers. And watch our videos, watch our tips. But as for a couple books to read, definitely pick up and read The Essential 55 by Ron Clark, yes. Also, okay, blanking on the name. I shouldn't be. Teach Like a Champion by Doug Lamont. I believe that's his name. That is my Bible. My teaching Bible it's called Teach Like a Champion. You can get it on ebook. That basically is the premise of the entire way I teach, all my skills and strategies. But those are the two books to read. Watch YouTube, lots of YouTube. I mean, really, that's mostly what I think you can do. You can't really prepare a lot for what you're going to face because you just never know. I mean, it depends on your class. It depends on the students that you have. It depends on your cooperating teacher. But I would say read up and try to, I would say, get mentally prepared by learning how to be reflective on yourself. Like, today was a good day because, or today was a bad day because, and be able to name the good things and the things that you need to work on. That's a skill you can work on every day, regardless of what you're doing, to prepare you to teach.
Yeah, that's a really good answer. It's so funny. I wouldn't have thought of YouTube right off the top of my head, and like that's what we're doing, right? So like ridiculous, but that was a great answer. I think if I was thinking of books, the two books that I'm thinking of are there's a book called Teach Like Your Hair is on Fire by Rafe Esquith, who's a teacher in South Central Los Angeles and is amazing. There's also a PBS special you could probably find for free on YouTube about him. And if I can find that, I will link it in the description below, along with these books that myself and Kyle are throwing out there. And a completely unrelated book is anything by Father Gregory Boyle. He runs the largest gang. What is it like? I'm talking to my wife next to me. It's not an invisible friend. So what he does is he works with gang members that have been in prison, kids that have not been in prison but are like wrapped up in the gang life, and his world is just amazing because he really builds relationships with these guys and girls, and so that's how he is able to do like really incredible stuff by building relationships. And for me, that's one of the biggest things. I'd say your student teaching, get in there as early as you can, stay as late as you can, and just talk to kids. And building those relationships like handles, I think, 99% of the problems that you can have in class when you have strong relationships with students. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to keep moving along. If anyone asks a question and so I see tons of questions coming up. I want to try and get to all of them. But Genuine Teaching, who you just mentioned, asked if you weren't a teacher, what do you think you would be? And also, do you see yourself staying in the classroom as a teacher for your entire career? I think I've heard you talk about this a little bit, so I'm interested to hear what your answer is for this.
Yeah, so if I wasn't a teacher, what would I be doing? So this question comes up a lot in my own mind, but right now, I think I would want to just I am in love with doing YouTube. Like, I love vlogging, and that's like my creative outlet. And Kristen and I, my wife, always talk about if nobody ever watches our vlogs, it's still fun to do because we're cataloging and documenting our life. So I would figure out some way to if I wasn't a teacher, work with video and editing, maybe go into that, some film. I'm loving that. And then as far as the teaching, I don't think I'm going to be in the classroom my whole career. I think I'm the type of person that likes new and exciting challenges. Not saying that teaching kindergarten is not exciting and challenging, because it is. But I would see myself eventually moving up and becoming maybe an instructional coach, or what I really want to do, and maybe doing YouTube will help propel that career, is I would really like to be a teaching coach, where I would go and coach one-on-one new teachers, sit down with them, watch their lessons, video their lessons, break them down, help them lesson plan. Too many young teachers are going unmentored, or they're given a mentor that's just already a teacher in their building, and they're like, hey, you want to mentor this new person? And they're like, I guess. And then they meet every once in a while. I want to be somebody that can go in and really help them with problems and be a resource for them. I think if that was a thing, I know some districts have things like that, but I would really like to fine tune that, and I could see myself moving in that direction.
Yeah, I would be similar on that front. I think if I wasn't teaching, I really, really like mentoring. I love talking to kids and hearing their stories, and I maybe like a counseling route, but the thing I don't like about that is it's so official, and I just think there's a lot of limitations there. And so when I eat lunch every day with 20 to 30 students in my class, and all I do is talk to them. I listen to their stories. I listen to what's going on in their lives. And it is completely addicting because, if I know when I was 15, I never had a teacher. I never had a teacher in high school that I thought was great, or that I felt listened to me or was interested in anything that I was interested in. And so I really like being that for students and teachers as well. I love making sure that new teachers have a voice, or they have help, or if everyone's going out for something to eat after work, or if there's a party, making sure people are included, because that's such a big thing. I think when you first start teaching, you just start you like stay in your room all the time and you create your own little world and you don't touch base with enough other people, and those relationships are crucial to have with other teachers.
Yeah.
If I so I think that's what I would end up doing if I wasn't in the classroom. Do I see myself staying in the classroom for the rest of my life? Yes. I really like it. I just think that for me, especially in this last few years, like it's opened up so many other possibilities. So I took 11 students to Costa Rica last month. Next year we're going to Greece, and we're talking about like the guys that I'm taking. Most of them were never on an airplane before, so I like went into the cockpit, which was super awesome because I've never been in the cockpit before. And I asked the pilot if he had those little wings, and it turns out they really have those things. I didn't know.
Okay.
So like I like handed them out to all the kids on the plane, and this year we started a school store. We had like very little money, but we wanted to raise money for the trip, so we created the school store and built all of the countertops and the shelving and everything. And I got to teach the kids how to be like, store owners and how to treat your customers and how to set up your product and stuff. So I just think that teaching is something that, at least where I am, I know other people might feel more limited than this. It just gives you a lot of options for a lot of different things to do, which is really, really fun. There was a question just a moment ago. Let me find this gentleman. So, Josh, he writes his name. And so he said, where did you go, Josh? The questions are just popping up so rapidly. What are your thoughts on the current education system in the context of preparing people for the real world? So I guess like, are we preparing people for the real world? Like what do you think about? I'm just going to throw everything at you first, Thane.
That's all right. Okay. Wow, that's a deep question and a rather large question. So if we unpack that a little bit, I guess, the problem is our society is changing faster than the education system is changing. And there's a lot holding our education system back, a lot of red tape, a lot of changes. We get changes every 4 to 8 years in the administration and at the state level and the district level. There's so many changes, but society is changing faster with technology and what's acceptable, and what you need now to be successful in life is different than what you needed 20 years ago. So for example, I teach kindergarten, and one of my biggest pushes is computer literacy. Like, I wish I could get some video of my class, but my kids are whizzes on the computer. They know how to bookmark websites. They know how to troubleshoot. They know how to, it's amazing to see what little ones can do when they're given the opportunity to use technology. But preparing everybody overall, I guess, I don't know, like, the way I see school is, and I can mostly just speak to kindergarten, is I'm giving my kids the foundations, reading and writing and the basics, and trying to instill a love for learning that will carry them through their life. And if I've done that, then I think that I've done my job. I had a pretty good K-12 education. I'm not going to lie. I went to a rural school. I graduated with 60 people. It was very close-knit. I only, in a class, had 15. We were well-funded. So I didn't have any real adversity as far as my education goes. But I really think the only thing that can really, truly prepare you for real life is actual real-life experience. Like, the one thing that I think schools are lacking now, at least in my area, in my area of Ohio, is life prep classes. Like, they took away a lot of our home ec and our shop classes, and those things are falling off to the side. Where, like, when I moved to Chicago right out of college, I'm calling my mom, like, okay, I can't remember. Am I supposed to wash everything on cold or warm? Stupid stuff, right? Like, I mean, life experience is what really is going to prepare you. School is there to give you the foundations, the basics, and maybe along the way you can meet somebody that can mentor you or send you on a certain path or help you on your certain path. But you got to do a lot of work on your own. Like, you got to find stuff out on your own, and you got to experience things on your own.
Yeah, I agree. And so I would say, the content of my class, like, if you don't remember what illusion is or a simile, you'll survive. But one of the things that I try and teach through all the books, since I'm teaching 9th grade literature, is are like all the things I think are really impactful. So for instance, like I do think there's value in that, and I'm so I'm not discounting that. However, I think teaching kids like emotional intelligence. So I teach at an all boys school, and I have a ton of guys that would tell you that they have like anger management issues. And so trying to help people figure that out, and figure that out like through literature and through writing in class and talking. And so I think something like that, something like learning how to communicate with others, like actually listening to people, and then when they are finished talking, like you responding then, and learning how to have a really good conversation where both people are winning because you're actually listening and caring for one another, and building community. I mean, we have my co-teacher and I have 2 co-taught classes at school. So there's myself and there's a special ed teacher in there. And a huge part of our class is like learning how to build community with students and helping them to work with one another, how to work in groups, how to achieve things together, and counting on other people. And I think that's a skill that's huge in the real world. So I can't say, the current education system is preparing people for real life, but I think teachers are. I think even despite whatever the system is saying, or your core curriculum that your school gives you, like I think teachers really are trying to do their best to like create a place where kids are learning about the real world, and really they're ready to step out into the real world. Mm-hmm. So let me see Jalen asked, do teachers change their lesson plans? If so, how frequently? That is a great question. I change my lesson plans all the time. I might be driving to school and the right song comes on, or I'm listening to a podcast and I think, hey, that was a great idea. That's actually, I'm scrapping what I was doing today, and this is what we're going to do instead. Because if you're excited about it, then your lesson's going to be 100 times better than if you're just trying to like get through something. So I change lesson plans constantly, and not always on purpose. Sometimes it's a total accident on the way to school. What do you think about that?
Yeah. So exactly the same. I would say I very rarely stick to my lesson plans, to be honest. So especially the way that I plan, I do a lot of small group instruction with my kiddos, like just because I get such a wide range of abilities. And at the beginning of the year, I'll give half my class who knows their alphabet and half the class that doesn't, just based on exposure. Some went to pre-K, some didn't. So I have to teach a lot of small group, and I plan for Monday. And whatever my kids do takes me where I go next. So if I'm teaching a lesson on sentence structure, and one of my groups, my small groups, nails it, just crushes it, we're going to move on to something else. I can't predict if they're going to crush it or not. So it's sort of like I don't take a day on Sunday and sit down and plan out my whole week. I kind of plan for the beginning of the week and then just kind of see where we go from there. And sort of I'm planning every day. And like you said, in the car, I'll be listening to a song, just driving along, and something will pop into my head. I honestly get most of my best teaching ideas like in the morning, like 5 minutes before the bell rings. Like, oh my God, I'm going to do that today. Like, so I feel like to be an effective teacher, you've got to be able to change and be flexible. Like, spur of the moment, like, okay, this lesson is not working. Let's ditch it, do something else. Or a lot of times something current is going on, right? So like figuring out current events or student interests, and maybe something just happened. I don't know. I can't think of an example off the top of my head, but using that in your lesson the next day, you got to be flexible.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, what was I going to say about that? I think when you are starting out, that might be more difficult. Like the more you do it, the better you get at it. But being able to kind of learn from your mistakes, and like if something's going really wrong, or even more importantly, if kids aren't getting it, like putting the brakes on your lesson plan and not feeling like you have to keep going forward, like stopping where you are, or feeling like you can rewind. Because if you're not teaching them correctly, the kids aren't learning. And, we're not trying to like just get through stuff. We're trying to take our time so that kids are actually learning. And if that means I get through only half in a week of what I wanted to get through, then that's fine with me, because I want the kids to learn. And it's not so much like did I achieve my goal or something like that.
Exactly.
I missed who it was from. So I apologize. But someone asked, what advice do you have? I think this is a really great question too. For newly married couples when someone's about to go into their first year of teaching. That's the face right there. That's perfect.
So, I was a newly married couple going into my first year of teaching. So, here we go. So, step one, your spouse or whoever's not the teacher, it obviously has to be supportive. And I think it's all about a conversation. And anybody who's married will tell you that the key to marriage is communication, like good communication. So, sitting down and having a conversation with your wife or husband about, okay, I'm going into my first year of teaching. Here's what you can expect, or here's what I think will happen. And planning out, like, having them know, like, this is going to be most of my free time, most of my life. But sitting down and working on your schedule, sit down on a Sunday afternoon and talk about the week coming up. And pick out one time a week at least for, doesn't even have to be a date night, but it can be a date date hour. I don't know. Do something. Schedule in little pockets of time together. Maybe it's at 10 o'clock right before bed. You guys fire up an episode on Netflix, like right before bed, or whatever you have to do. I know Kristen and I, we moved our TV to our bedroom our first year because it was easier to just real quick watch an episode together right before bed, and it's all just about compromise and communication. Like, if you can, and let them know, look, honey, if you can get through this first year with me, we can get through anything. So
Yeah, because honestly, being married that first year is hard enough. I mean, I think, so for my wife and I know different people's situations are different, but like, maybe this applies to you. I did not live with my wife before we were married. We moved in with one another a month before we got married, just because her lease ran out, and so she moved into my apartment. And that was the first time we'd ever lived together. And we'd been together for years before then, but before you live with someone, like, you think you know people until you actually live with them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we had a really great first year of marriage, but teaching in the beginning just took up so much time that I would come home every night. I would revamp my lesson plans. I'd plan all weekend, and I just was so nervous, and I wanted to be great so much that that's all I cared about. And I did have to, you're right, you have to absolutely plan in time to like spend with your spouse. And that's like, your phone's not there, you're trying not to think about school, even if you're secretly thinking about school. But it's really, that stuff's really important. But I think the part of the marriage that's not a teacher, like whether that's the guy or the girl, really having a lot of grace and realizing that this person is going to grow a lot this year. They're going to go through a lot of ups and downs. I mean, I don't know if there's, I mean, I imagine there's other jobs, but to come home and like in a job where you feel like you're crushing it all day, you can have something happen in the last 5 or 10 minutes that is like a total sucker punch to the face. And then you come home and you need to nurse that bruise, and you can't just come home happy every day. It can be really, really taxing on you. And so I would just say having grace for that other person as much as possible, because it can be a really, really hard job at times. What? So Monica said, "Hola from Mexico, just found your channels. Keep up the good work. You're changing lives." Well, thank you, Monica. That's very nice. I thought that was going to be a question. That's why I read that out loud. But I appreciate it anyway. So that is great. Someone else said, I'm trying to look for other questions. Sorry for the dull moment, folks, but I'm trying to just make sure that I don't want to miss people, and that's what I want to see.
Right.
So let's see. Could you look for those?
I don't see them.
No.
Kate said we're getting a lot of love on YouTube. So,
I'm looking at YouTube as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So someone said Jalen had another good question. Thanks, Jalen, for asking all these great questions. I appreciate it, man. And your question went away because I took my fingers off of the mouse for a second. I will find it momentarily. He said, from a parent's perspective, how would you go about choosing your kid or kids' school? Because I'm 19 years old. Hold on. It keeps scrolling up against my will. It didn't have it.
There it is.
So how would you choose what school your kids would go to? And Jalen's saying that he's 19 and he didn't have good teacher relationships when he was in school. How would that affect you? So in the future, how do you think that would affect you? Or do you think about that already, like in terms of that kind of stuff?
Well, I'm actually lucky enough that the town of Gilboa, I live in a really good school district. It's actually where I went to school, and it's a pretty solid school district, good community. So when Kristen and I do have kids, we already know where they're going. So we're very lucky in that regard. However, I teach in the city of Lima, and Lima, Ohio has public schools and private schools, and I definitely would, like, that's got to be a difficult decision. Like, I know a lot of parents want their children to go to a private school versus a public school for various reasons. Maybe they had a poor experience with public school or whatever the case may be. But as a public school teacher, I'm a public school advocate, and I just think I would, if I was in a situation where I had to choose, or I lived in an area where it wasn't a good public school in my area, I would do whatever it took to get them into a good school that's close by. Maybe if I had to drive them myself. I know in Chicago you kind of had to go to your neighborhood school, so everybody walked. If you wanted to go to a different school, you had to, drive, open, and roll. So that kind of got messy. But yeah, I can empathize with that, like not knowing, especially if you don't live in a good district. I don't have a lot of experience with that, so like I said, yeah, I guess do your research in your area and find what you assume to be the best fit for you, and know that even if you don't have a perfect public school education background, or if you don't have a perfect school, your child will probably be okay. I know, there's some poor districts in our area, like failing schools, and there's kids from those schools all the time that go to great colleges, and a lot of it comes down to if they can find a good mentor or role model somewhere, whether it's you or if it's another teacher, or I guess look around and try to find something that fits.
Yeah. The first thing I think of when I think of this question is my kids, no matter what struggles they face, they have two parents that absolutely love them and would do anything for them. And I think that is the greatest thing that your child could have, is an advocate for them that's going to stand up for them no matter what and no matter where they're going to school. And so you could be in a really poor district or a really affluent district, but if your parents really kind of push for you, then you're going to get the best possible experience that you can. And I think that is more important than anything. I lived in a nice neighborhood in South Jersey and in New Jersey growing up, but then I went to a high school that was like the worst high school in South Jersey at the time. It was where, like, when kids got kicked out of bad high schools, they got sent to this high school, and because it was a vocational school, and so they thought, I guess the idea there was, well, if you're not going to go to college, you're not going to graduate from a regular school, you would go to a vocational school and learn a trade. And I went in thinking, oh, we get to have wood shop for 4 periods a day. That sounds awesome. Let's do it. And I got there and I thought, oh, this is a little rougher than I thought it was going to be. But I think because my parents really cared and they wanted the best for me, they made sure that I got the most out of that experience, and that's key. Yeah. What was that? There was another. Where is? Oh, snap. Which one? Oh, okay. So Karina H said, "Hello. What kind of professional development do you do in the summertime? What do you do?" And so actually, Genuine Teaching had a similar question that was like, I think she said, what do you do at the end of the current school year to get ready for the next school year? And so those kind of partner together really well. I don't know. What do you think? What do you do, Thane?
So, my professional development wise, my district, we go in August for a couple of days. We have professional development days the week before school starts, and we can kind of pick and choose what sessions we want to join, whatever we want to work on. So that's kind of it. I don't really do anything besides that. And then what do I do with, like, right now I've got, I think, 7 days left of school. So what am I doing right now to prepare for next year? I'm doing a lot of recon because I have, there's a preschool in-house in my building, and I'll get some of those kids. And so I am doing some hardcore recon, meeting those kids, getting a face to a name, trying to start up a relationship now, so that way when they get there in the fall, they'll have a friendly face to see, trying to reach out to some parents. But as far as like year to year, this year is one of my roughest years I've had, and it taught me if it taught me one thing, it was 1 year, your successes and failures does not necessarily transfer to the next. So different group of kids, different personalities, they'll mix differently. I've had to teach completely differently this year than I have in the past. So honestly, I am just kind of going to reset and go into the next school year with no expectations and just kind of roll with it, because I can't make predictions. But I mean, yeah, doing the recon and reaching out to some parents and trying to make connections, that's probably what I'm going to be focusing on.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. I think my problem in the summer is I don't do nothing very well. Like I'm not very good at like chilling or like just sitting around. I get very, very antsy. I still get up early in the morning. I still like to have a full day. And when I don't, that bothers me. And so for me, it's about finding outlets for all of that energy that I generally expel during the school year while I'm in the summer. And so sometimes I want to do things like prep my home. Like that's actually important to me, to like fix all those weird little things that I didn't get done during the school year, because then I feel better going into the next year. It's kind of like, when you're a kid and your mom would like set your clothes out for you before you went to bed, or you did that. And so, because then you felt ready for the next day. And this summer I'm going to spend a lot of time actually at my school working on my classroom. I'm starting to teach several new classes next year. So I'll be teaching in a co-taught environment for the entire year. And we'll be teaching the kids that we had from 9th grade this year. I'll be teaching them in 10th grade next year. So there's not as much of a lag in their learning in the beginning of the year. And so we can start in September and just hit the ground running. And so I have a lot of really great fun classroom decoration that I want to do, and like getting rid of desks. And instead we're going to start using tables and organization stuff for that. Like that all makes me feel going into the year, because then I'm excited about being in my own room. I'm excited about all these changes and having kids come back and see it. And the other thing I think that I think you could tie into this is, I've done this unofficially before, but I'm making it a little bit more official this year, is taking small trips with students over the summer. So maybe there's a lot of places in Philly, so in Philly, my students so if my kids are from West Philadelphia, they don't go to other parts of Philadelphia often to see what's there, to see what's going on. They just stay on the block or in their neighborhood. So to take kids to different parts of the city to see things that they don't normally see, it does a couple of things. It makes kids excited about learning, and also helps me to build relationships with kids outside of the classroom. And that's infinitely more important than I think than anything else I can read or do over the summer, because it's going to set me up for success for next year, and it's going to make kids pumped to be in my class and pumped to like come in and learn. And especially if I can, my plan is to try and pull some kids that like I didn't have that time to build those relationships this year, or they were really quiet, or I didn't realize they were struggling or they were going through something, and really build those things up so that like even the quiet kids are more engaged and more invested in our class. So that's a few of the things I'm thinking of this summer. Yeah. So it's almost 9 o'clock. We're at 49 minutes, which is good. Want to take 2 or 3 more questions, and then we'll see where we're at from there?
Yeah, sounds good.
Sounds good. All right. So let me look through here. If you have any last questions, you can type them in now. I'm going to try and look through and make sure that we're not missing anything. I have, oh, there goes a question right there. Kate's saying it's so short. That's because Kate goes on You Now for 3 hours. It's amazing. It's like a Grateful Dead show. Someone asked, wait, oh, there it goes. It keeps scrolling up against my will. Where did it go? It's something to do with self-discipline. Ways to practice self-discipline, growing to become independent from parents. Oh, that's a good question. I mean, yeah, that's going to depend on what kind of parents you have too, I think. But so maybe, what do you think about that in terms of like, how did you do that?
Yeah, so I moved 5 hours away. I moved to Chicago from Gilboa, and I just moved, and I had to because that's where I got my first job. And I moved for the job, and I had to become. The way that I learn best is to just go for it, to just dive right in, and that's what I did with teaching, and that's what I did with becoming independent of my parents. And like I said earlier, like just there is no comparison to exposure or experience and exposure, exposing yourself to the world and trying new things and just jumping out there and doing it. I remember when I had to make my first doctor's appointment in Chicago. Like, I didn't have a family doctor. I'm like, what do I do? How do you, like, you just can't walk into a doctor's office and say, I'm here, one appointment, please. Like, you fix me. Like, you have to set stuff up. And it was difficult, but it was very, I got a lot of self-confidence in knowing that I did a lot of things on my own. So really, if you have to move away, then you do. But you can also do that while close. Again, it's just about communication, like letting them know, like, all right, mom and dad, I need to grow as a person. I need to do stuff on my own. So I appreciate all the help that you've given me over the years. I wouldn't be who I am without you, but I need to learn some stuff on my own. And that might mean you seeing me fail a few times, but I have to fail if I want to succeed. And I think this is a conversation that you have with them.
That's a good answer. My dog is currently giving me this really gross ball, putting it on my leg because he thinks I'm going to throw it because he's obviously not watching. I'm on live right now. So he's relentless. He's like, this is what he does all the time. So not to make this take a sadder turn, which is totally fine, but I lost my dad when I was 4, and my mom died she was very, very sick with cancer when I was in my early 20s, and I lost her shortly after that. And so when I'm thinking of this, I'm thinking that I kind of felt like I had to learn from a very early age, and I wasn't on a trajectory to be that guy, to be someone who was from a very early age, like taking care of himself, because I feel like I would have ended up being the dude that like lived at home till he was 30, called his mom's basement his apartment, you know what I mean? And so I instead just kind of like had to go out in the world. Like, I had to find my own place and figure out how to do stuff. And even after I had kids, like, I didn't have babysitters. Like, my mom and dad couldn't just watch my kids. Like, I had to watch my kids. And there's, I felt like, but I think because of going through that experience, I also felt like I was let in on a secret that not everyone else was let in on, which is, this doesn't last forever. So I wasn't so scared to go out and do things. I became extremely eager to get out into the world and to try everything, to travel everywhere, to try every kind of food, to read all the books, to have all the experiences. And that was a total, it was like being like thrown in the pool as a child instead of like starting out on the shallow end and like easing your way in. And so, I mean, it sounds like you kind of did the same thing, but like of your own volition, like just kind of jumping in there. So, I think, for me, when I think of my own children, I think they could do anything they want. Like, what am I going to do? Like, not love them anymore? Like, oh, you want to move to Iceland, or you want to become a rodeo clown? Like, you know what? I'll buy season tickets to the rodeo then because I love you and that's what I'm going to do. And I think that that's just really important to remember. Like, your parents could get mad at you, but are they going to stop loving you? Are they going to stop, like, calling you on your birthday or supporting you. Like, I just think that the chances of that happening are very limited. And if they do, like, what are you going to do? What's your alternative? Like, not live? So
Yeah.
I think that's your only answer is to go do what you want to do and let your parents know, like, this makes me excited. This is what I want to do, and I want you to support me, and have that conversation with them. I think you'd be surprised to talk to parents and to find out, like, what would they have done.
Right.
So last three questions. I have my buddy from school, Alonzo, who we call Hugs. Almost, I'd say about 85% of my students do not get called by the regular name. They all have ridiculous nicknames, and his name is Hugs. And I told him that was his nickname because he looked like he enjoyed hugs. So he asked, what would you do if you were a student struggling in all of your classes? Hashtag not me. So I'm wondering how much you deal with this being a kindergarten teacher, like kids that just aren't doing well. Like, how do you help them kind of rebound before they leave your class?
So kindergarten is interesting because it's, kids either come in with a large background of knowledge based on their experiences, or they come in as a clean slate. And I always tell parents, my guarantee to you is if you bring your kid to school every day on time with what they need, their materials, their supplies, every day, and they have a willingness to learn and do the right thing, I will have them on grade level by the end of the year. Now, this is barring any learning disabilities or anything of that nature that we haven't discovered yet. But even so, then they'll get the resources that they need, and they'll get what they need to succeed in kindergarten and moving forward. So in my class, if a child is just straight up not performing, it's mostly due to behavior or a lack of wanting to learn on that particular day. And so it's typically a conversation that I have with them. The 5 and 6-year-old mind is a very complex thing that I will never understand, but getting at their level and really trying to connect with them and find out what they're interested in, and almost in a way tricking them into learning. Like, I have a student who is like hardcore into John Cena, and so anytime he does something good, I just go ahead and throw on this. Let me see if it works. He loves it. I just go ahead and pop this on for him real quick.
My son is paying attention now. That caught his attention.
Loves it. And so, it's for me, it's like, putting on a show in some way, like making learning exciting and fun. But if a kid is struggling, I find out what they want and I try to get it to them. So that's kind of my answer there.
Yeah. So if I'm thinking in terms of a student who's struggling, I think your way out of everything is sincere conversations, or your way through everything, not like to try and get out of it. Right. Go to a teacher, tell them, like, even if it's the end of the year, look, man, I messed up. I didn't do the right thing. I'm willing to live with the repercussions, but what would you say is the best course of action for me at this point? And I think that goes a long way. A lot of kids just like don't know what to do, or they ask for the makeup mark, or they're not sure how to have the conversation. So maybe find a teacher that you really, really connect with, and someone that you maybe can look up to, or that you feel safe with, and ask them, say, here's my situation. How would you go about dealing with it? And then see what kind of picture they paint with that information. I think that's really, really valuable, because a lot of times when you're young, you don't know how to have a conversation. Like, if you're in, 4th grade, me didn't know how to have a conversation at all. 9th grade with me was just super awkward and terrified of my high school. So I think, confiding in someone and seeing what they would do, and then just following that course of action can really, really help. Edwin T. Edwin, I'm going to ruin your last name. This is why I have nicknames for everyone. I apologize. Minegula? I'm going to go with that. So Edwin asks, as an upcoming first-year elementary teacher, what would you do over the summer to get ready for the school year? I have some ideas, but I'd love to hear more. And so we kind of touched on this earlier when we talked about student teaching, but for like actual teaching, I would say my answer is pretty short. I would say, Edwin, you don't know completely what you're going into, so just stay loose. Be ready to go into the classroom. And I would set up my classroom so that it's like as much of a well-organized machine as it can be, so that you're not going in at the beginning of the year and still having to organize or put things in their place. You're not going to have time for that. Like, so try and get everything as ready, be ready to kind of roll with it as you do. And then, like Mr. Thain said earlier, watch YouTube videos. Like, you know, to not plug us, but to plug us. Like, you know, I think both of us are trying to make YouTube videos that we wish had existed when we were starting out. And so there's tons of resources. And I'm going to put links in the description below for like other teachers that I think would be valuable to check out. So if you want to check this out tomorrow, you'll find those links from like anyone from One Fab Teacher who teaches down in Texas to Classroom Diva to Genuine Teaching. Like, these are all really invaluable resources, and there's not that I can find on the internet, but the 20 or so that I know exist kind of hit all these different bases. And I would say, I'm gonna answer for Kyle also, but I would say reach out, like leave a question in the comment section or send someone an email. I love answering questions. I love when people hit me up and like want my advice. I just think that that's really fun. And so, yeah, don't be afraid to reach out to people. So what would you say to that, Kyle?
Yeah, I'm just going to echo that. Reach out to fellow teachers, whether or not it's on YouTube or elsewhere. And like you said, be loose, be open. And something that you touched on that I want to sort of elaborate on from my own experience is, yeah, get your personal life in check. Like you said, you fix up your house over the summer. Like, get everything else in your life on point. Like your wardrobe, your closet, get it cleaned out, get your teacher clothes ready, get your bills in check, like get everything, all your systems, your organization strategies, get everything in your personal life in check. That way, when everything hits you with teaching, you don't feel like you're overwhelmed and swimming. There's no worse feeling than feeling like you're drowning, and every time you get a new thing that you have to do, it just stacks on and stacks on. Versus if you have everything else in your life in check, oh, I can take care of that thing now because I've got everything else. So get a real solid routine for yourself. I know CJ was just saying he still wakes up early in the summer, and I'm going to try and do that this summer too. I'm going to try to stick to my 5:30 wake up time just to keep my body in a routine and get up, you know, embrace the day and have a plan for every day. Get into a good routine. That way when school hits, it's the same routine, same old, eat breakfast at the same time, do what you got to do, exercise, and sort of get yourself prepared in that way. Because you can control that. You know, you can control that part of your life. You can't control the teaching part of your life to some degree. So I would say get your personal life in check.
Yeah, that was a really great answer. So I have someone said, Sophia said, I know you're talking, but it would mean the world to me if I could have a shout out. Sophia, her last name is Spica. What would you say that is? Spica? I'm the worst with that. I don't know. How do I teach for this long? I can't pronounce people's names. Sophia, I'm really glad that you came on here and watched this tonight. So thank you so much for tuning in. And I'm going to echo that to my man Kyle, who's a student of mine. We call him Don't Smile Kyle because he tries to never smile. And that always becomes the game every day, is try and get Kyle to laugh. So what's up, Kyle? And so let's do two more questions. That's a really great question. Miss Kindergarten, who's been on here, I think all night. She said, her question is similarities and differences between teaching kindergarten and high school. That's a great question. And that was something that I got even from my students who were like, wait, the guy you're going live with teaches kindergarten, but you teach like 9th grade in West Philadelphia. Like, how do those two things align? And I think they align. There's tons of connection points. So if I'm going to just jump in here first real quick. And I think, you know, teaching is less about the content and it's always only about the student.
Yep.
It's about building relationships. And for me, I can build a relationship just as easily with a child as I can with a teenager. And adults are a little bit more tricky because I feel like I can't be as silly all the time around them. But it's about, to me, listening to kids, learning what they like, and then teaching from that place. Like, from if my guys are real into J. Cole, I teach from that. Last year, it was Pokemon all of a sudden came back with Pokemon Go, so I had lessons that were based on Pokemon Go. If I taught little kids, yeah, I don't even like John Cena, but you know what? I'd know everything about John Cena if I had that same student that you did, Kyle, and I would just like drop knowledge on that guy all the time so that that kid looked at me as being someone that he could connect with. And I think overall, it's about those connections with students, and that's the biggest connector point for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I couldn't say it better myself. I think it is only about the kids connecting with them. And I think, like you said, you can connect with a child no matter what age they are. And the thing about it is truly being genuine. And you mentioned this earlier, knowing when to say you're sorry. Like when you tell a kid, hey man, I'm sorry. They get taken back. Like, oh, wait a minute, what's going on right now? Like, So just being genuine with them. And like you said, like, teaching isn't really about the content. Like if I were to teach high school, the big difference is I would have to become an expert at something like math or English. And but it's still a lot of the same strategies and same things and same philosophies about teaching, no matter what grade you're in. So many grades are quite similar in that regard. So
yeah, I think I'm something you said triggered this in me, and I just thought also being able to make things relevant to kids, like whether you're in kindergarten or in 12th grade, why are we learning what we're learning? How is this important? Or making something so that kids can understand it. I think that's a real gift that can be learned to some extent, and I think is very natural for other people. And so that's a really important key also. There was another question that you saw. Jackie asked, what are your thoughts on high expectations for kinders? Maybe, or meaning, should we push them to read even if they are, it says, should we push them to read even if they are ready? I guess that could be if they aren't ready also. So,
yeah,
so what's your, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so this is my 5th year in kindergarten, and every single year I get kids at the beginning of the year where I go, oh man, how am I going to get them to read by the end of the year? And every year they end up reading. And the thing about it is kids will learn when they're ready. Like that's just the thing. I had a kid this year that Christmas break knew like 2 letters. Now he's reading. And he did that from like March till now. Like it just clicked. That light bulb just went off. And because he was ready to learn it, right? Like, if a kid's not ready, they're just simply not ready. Like I personally, I've never, our district allows us to retain kindergarten students to do another year of kindergarten. I've never done that. I've never felt the need to, on a personal level and a kid by kid basis. But a lot of times a kid who wasn't quite on grade level by the end of kindergarten, they were fine in 1st grade because when they got to 1st grade, they just soaked it up. Like, learning is so developmental. Like you just learn when you're ready at sometimes, like it just kind of happens. I don't know if that makes sense, but yeah, like I have high expectations behaviorally and also like show up, do the right thing, try your best. And if your best isn't on grade level, that's all right.
Yeah, I think that's a really good answer. That's and I as a parent, I could only echo that, but I don't have I'm not a kindergarten teacher, but I just know that's what I do with our children with everything. My wife and I, if you're ready, like if everyone else on the block is riding a bike and you aren't into it yet, or you're still struggling with it, like I'm not going to push you to ride a bike. I'm not going to make you wake up early. This isn't Rocky. Like I want you to do the things that you want to do. Because I think, that's what builds a love of learning. If you're pushed into it and you're made to do it and you're really struggling and it's like giving you anxiety, like maybe think of a different approach or slow down. But yeah, I think it's that more natural approach is way more effective. Jalen asked, he said, our society is so messed up. Do you think teachers are underpaid compared to the entertainment industry? Yes, Jalen, I do. I am underpaid. And, the funny part is that I really love my school. Like, I can't say enough, the administration, my coworkers, the kids that are there. I really, really love it. And so I know that my administration would pay me as much as I really thought I was worth if they had it. But to be honest, there's funding cuts every year. Like we've had a funding cut. I don't think I've had a raise in about 5 years. And so, but that is what it is. And the tricky part of it is that if you're an actor and you're getting underpaid, you're not going to take that role. But if you're a teacher, you're still going to show up because you care about the kids. And so it's kind of like they got you in a spot where, you know, what are you going to do? What am I going to do? Leave? No. When I first started teaching in Camden, New Jersey, I made $32,000 a year. The summer before, I worked full-time at Home Depot, and I brought home more working at Home Depot than I did as a teacher. So, yes, I think we are, but, you know, I love the kids, so I got to figure out a way around that and to deal with it. What are your thoughts on that? I know that's my intro to like every question, and I feel like I'm on the news or something. Like, Mr. Thain, what are your thoughts on that?
I agree. I would echo that. I think you said it. Like when I went into education, knowing full well that I would never be able to have a lake house, right? Like I picked a certain lifestyle, and my wife Kristen, she is a social worker, so we both work in jobs that are offering a service, and we knew that our type of lifestyle wasn't going to afford us certain things. And we were okay with that because we have the satisfaction of, I love my job. I don't go, oh gosh, it's Monday, weekend's over. I get excited about going into work, and I enjoy it. And we both have a love for what we do. So I sort of value that in time over money, because time is the most valuable resource. We don't get more of that, right? So with my job, I love every day, most days, right? But I'm able to have fulfillment every single day, and maybe I don't get as much money, but in the long run, I think I'll have a happier life. But to being comparatively, like, yeah, like, would it be nice if we were held up to the same standard as, like, I don't know, a doctor or lawyer? Because, like, we are, like, I spend more time with my students than I do my family, right? Like, I'm helping raise children. I'm helping raise the future of our nation. So would it be nice if society recognized us on a higher level of prestige? Yeah, it would be. But right now, we're not. And I'm hoping people like us, CJ and us, and other teachers on YouTube, I hope we can paint teaching and education in a more professional light. And hopefully we all get some exposure, and we can sort of propel education forward. And who knows, maybe one day we will be getting paid more overall.
Yeah, I'll tell you, I am not nervous to like tell my students that, hey, I need to make more money. So if you get rich doing something, like if you do become a famous musician or a doctor, like don't forget Mr. Reynolds. Like, you know, I could use a hookup. I could use some new pants or something. Like that's how sad it is. But cool. We're at an hour and 12. You good calling it there?
Yeah, it was fairly successful. I'm glad the internet held up.
That was great, man. I really appreciate you being on. And I want to say, for the people that are just maybe tuning in, or you haven't been here the whole time, my name is CJ Reynolds. I have a YouTube channel called Real Rap with the Reynolds, and my guest is Kyle Thain. You can find him at Mr Thain on YouTube, and you know, go like and subscribe his channel. He has great stuff. He puts out literally the most content, I think, of any teacher on YouTube, like every day, putting out stuff. And then next week we'll be back. You can find us on YouNow or on YouTube. Our guest is going to be Joe Dombrowski, who was on Ellen DeGeneres recently. He was the guy with that crazy viral video about the spelling test for his first graders. And so he'll be joining us, and we'll be taking your questions. And that'll be May 30th at 8 p.m. I don't know why I'm talking like an announcer all of a sudden. Watch too many TV shows. But cool. Thanks for watching, guys. Thanks, Kyle.
All right, thanks, man. Take it easy.
Peace. And I'm ending it. Good evening.